We've heard a lot of different opinions and thoughts on the Baltimore Ravens offensive line, but Lamar Jackson, he spoke on the team's O-line on Thursday. We talk about that and so much more coming up on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens. Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And now the #1 sports podcast network. Appreciate everybody for being here, whether you're an everydayer, a first-time listener, or if you're somewhere in the middle. Thank you so much for all of your support on the show, as we have 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens content and coverage for you each and every day on Locked On Ravens. Jam-packed episode today. We'll do a little Ravens-Jets preview in the final part of the show. Big Week 12 matchup for Baltimore coming up at home. Starts a nice 3-game homestand for them. In the second part of the show, Mina Kimes exposed some weaknesses on the Ravens offense pertaining to their offensive line, something Lamar Jackson is having to deal with as well. So we'll talk about what she had to say and talk about those weaknesses. And we'll also dive into, in the first part of the show, Lamar Jackson, he finally spoke on the offensive line. I think a lot of people were kind of wondering, where's Lamar stand on this whole offensive line thing? And we got some words from Lamar Jackson on that. Want to tell everyone today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by Gametime. Down the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Here today with me, it is from the Ravens Talk podcast and the Locked On Ravens Squad Show, Sam Njoku. And Sam, we got some good practice news for the Ravens on Thursday, but a lot of guys returning after that scary Wednesday injury report. But we know the deal here. The Ravens are playing 2 games in 4 days. They got the Jets, then they got the Bengals on Thanksgiving night, or later in the season. I think a lot of these guys need rest and are obviously nursing some things too. So hopefully those guys will be out there on Sunday. We'll dive into a little bit later in the show, specifically who returned and who didn't. But it's nice to always see guys return to practice. That's never going to get old.
Everybody can take a deep breath and exhale. Lamar Jackson is back at practice. And yeah, they just got done a grueling physical matchup against the Cleveland Browns that we all saw last Sunday. 2 games in 5 days, as you mentioned. They got the Jets now and then the Bengals later. Yeah, you want to rest your guys, get them ready. Something that the Ravens may look to do throughout the rest of the season, because the O-line they're not getting the job done, and it's getting their QB a little banged up.
Yeah, more than a little at this point. I mean, you got hamstring, you got knee, you got ankle, you got everything for Lamar Jackson there. And we know that when he is at his best, he is using that incredible arm and his incredible legs to the best of their ability. And right now, it seems like something is off with Lamar Jackson. Obviously, he didn't practice on Wednesday with the ankle injury, so a new thing popped up. But as you mentioned, did return and participated fully in practice on Thursday. Although I know after that whole Bears thing, I know he was saying Lamar practiced fully still maybe gets people a little shiver, but still great to hear that. We also heard Lamar speak at the podium on Thursday and talked about his situation, said he feels good, right? Like, I think that's going to be the message from Lamar. He said he was able to practice. Now, is he feeling 100%? I'm not sure he'd tell you that, but he feels good enough to practice fully to play in the games here. So that's a solid thing in itself. But he talked about the offensive line because he was told that he was sacked the same number of times through week 11 than he was sacked all of last year. 23 sacks for the Ravens so far given up, which is not a great place to be. And he said, damn, I have to talk to the offensive line about that. I'm going to holler at my guys about that, man. I'm going to talk to my guys about that. And he was kind of doing it with like a, half smile, a little smirking in there. So it's not like he was throwing anybody under the bus or doing anything like that. But look, if I'm Lamar Jackson, I'm not feeling too great about the fact that I'm running for my life on a lot of these plays. Then he was further asked on if he feels any weight from the pressures he's gotten this year, because we know he's been on the run a lot. And he said, quote, "It's part of football. Sometimes guys will get you. Sometimes they won't. Like I said, I'm going to talk to my guys about that. They probably aren't going to like that, though. You guys are telling me it's 23 sacks. They probably are not gonna like that." So I'm not sure if Lamar's already talked to them or if he's gonna talk to them again now that he knows this new information or other information. I'm not sure. But again, like, Lamar didn't do anything egregious here. He didn't call anybody out, but I mean, look, the way that he kind of, in the tone he used to was kind of like a half joking tone, but at the same time, like, I'm sure he's probably serious in a way of like, hey, like, this needs to stop. I just want to sit back in that pocket and throw. We know the offensive line, Sam, has not been playing up to par this year.
Not at all. And it's refreshing to hear from Lamar him saying that, because, I feel bad for the guy. I think, 23 sacks isn't a lot in the grand scheme of things compared to the worst we've seen from other QBs out there in history. I know Drew Brees got sacked a lot. Phillip Rivers got sacked a lot. There's other guys who've been sacked a ton. But yeah, this offense is not going to be able to get going if the offensive line continues to struggle the way that they have. And Lamar Jackson has been taking hit after hit. Myles Garrett was all over him in that contest against the Browns. And again, the Ravens aren't going to play a guy like Myles Garrett again this season. Maybe in the postseason they'll play a Denver Broncos team with a front seven that's comparable to what the Browns have. But the Ravens aren't going to face a team like this. But it doesn't mean that they haven't struggled with other teams that aren't named the Browns. Remember, the Steelers have 2 games coming up. TJ Watt is not to be trifled with. So, they need to get their act together. And I think Lamar Jackson, half jokingly, half serious, because, it is a serious matter, but what can you do? Lamar Jackson will, erase a lot of blemishes that your offensive line can cause because of his mobility, but you're seeing that mobility get tested a bit here because of how porous the offensive line is, especially in the interior where you don't have a lot of time to escape pressure.
Yeah, and he talked about even just in the pocket, if he feels like the hits he's been taking in the pocket have been harder than in previous years. And he talked about like in the pocket, yeah, because when he said when he's running, he doesn't really think he's gotten hit. But in the pocket, if he's not expecting it, obviously those hits are going to be harder. Your body's relaxed. You're not tensing up for those hits when you're not expecting it. And, like that Ed Oliver hit in week 1 was just like, whoo. And then he got the Dallas Turner hit, which was roughing the passer. And he said that he wasn't expecting that one at all. But he talked about like defensive linemen are strong, 300 pounders, 200 and something pounders. And he said you're probably going to get hit hard in those situations. But he said, when he's in the pocket, yeah, those hits are hard. But outside the pocket, he can move around a little bit. But the problem, Sam, is that he's not getting an opportunity like we've talked about to maneuver out of the pocket on some of these plays because that pressure is so quick. And look, I'm just going to throw out a wild guess here, just an opinion. I don't think it feels very good to get hit by Myles Garrett over and over and over again the way that he was on Sunday. So those things add up, and it takes a toll on you. And for as good as Lamar Jackson has gotten at protecting his body, rookie year Lamar Jackson, he was trying to fight for that extra yard, and he would get like destroyed on some of those plays. Ever since then, he's been very good about like getting out of bounds and getting down. But again, like he hasn't had those opportunities on some of these plays because the pressure is so in your face so quickly. And so, whether it is Daniel Faalele or Ange Voorhees or Roger Rosengarten, Stanley had a really tough game in week 11. Like even Linderbaum has had some tough moments. We look at some of the stats and some of the metrics that have been thrown around here. Week 11 pass protection ranking, Sam, you want to know out of the 30 teams that played where Baltimore ranked? I think you might have an idea.
Oh, man. Bobby dead last.
30.
Oh, 30 is 2.
30. No, 30 out of 30.
Oh, that's right. Because, oh my gosh.
Teams in play. So 30 out of 30.
Ravens.
It's been like that for the majority of the season. Not every single play is bad from this offensive line. Not every single rep from every single player is bad. I'm not trying to say that. But as a unit, it just feels like, oh, wow, that guy looks really good now. Oh, but now these 2 guys are awful. Oh, there's improvement here. Oh, now the other guy's bad again. This feels like it's a rotating door of who's who and who's bad and who's not. And for more, that poor play continues more consistently than others.
Yeah, and listen, we like to put the blame on Daniel Faalele, and he shares some of that blame. But Daniel Faalele played last year, and the Ravens held opposing defenses just 23 sacks total throughout the year. So it's not just a Daniel Faalele issue. As you mentioned, other players are regressing. Rosengarten is taking a step back. Sometimes Ronnie Stanley doesn't look the best. Tyler Linderbaum is taking a step back, and we've talked about how his ability to play has kind of been diminished because of poor play from both Voorhees and Faalele. So it's all around. The Ravens need to find a way. If you're going to keep Faalele, if you're going to keep Voorhees, you need to find a way to protect your quarterback with those guys on the football field. So that falls on the coaching staff as much as it does the players. They got to figure something out because Lamar Jackson cannot continue to get hit like this. It's going to be a Wednesday missed practice, and sooner or later, it's going to be a week or 2 that he's out of practice because this quarterback is going to continue to get hit.
Yeah. He was asked a little bit about if he's had to learn to manage his body differently as he's gotten older. And he said, hold on. He was like, hold on. I don't think I'm old right now. He said, I don't think I'm old at all right now. And so essentially it was more so about like, he said it was his first time dealing with something like this while he's playing. So it's a new experience for him. And, it must feel, terrible for him to like know that he has all this ability in him, but he can't go as hard, or he can't do what maybe that cut or maybe that burst isn't there the way that it has been, not because of old age, because yes, Lamar is not old. I wouldn't be shocked if Lamar is still trying to like manage the hamstring and, not put as much pressure on there, but then the knee pops up and the ankle pops up and you're just like, all right, well, you have to use something in your leg to move, and, you have to put pressure on something. So that experience, as he's going through it, it's a learning experience for him, even though he's a veteran now, he's been around. I mean, this is the type of thing that, you just can't, you're right. You can't have him get hit this much, because it eventually is going to come to a major head where he already missed a month of the season with an injury. If it keeps going like this and you keep trotting out this 5 and they're not performing and they're keeping Lamar in harm's way, I'm just scared for Lamar and his health, and that it could get worse. And I don't want to feel that way. I want to feel like Lamar's protected. And I'm sure Lamar, he obviously wants to feel that way too.
Man, I'm sure he is hoping for some sort of difference, some change. Maybe it's personnel, maybe it's schematic, something. I know he is praying for it, because again, Lamar wants to, he wants to win. Remember, the Ravens offense put up 40 points on the Bills. They've been putting up big points prior to Lamar's departure. So that injury has taken its toll on this offense, on Lamar Jackson. He wants this offensive line to get better. He wants these guys to get better. As you mentioned, maybe it takes a personnel change. Maybe it's coaching, whatever. Ravens better figure it out, because they only have a few more weeks left to go. Not a lot of room for error here with 5 losses. They got to get this guy protected, make this offense hum, because the defense is showing up now. The offense has to follow suit.
Yeah, so Lamar speaks on the O-line, and a lot of people found his answer funny. Like, he was like, hey, like, he's like, I got to talk to my guys about that. But again, in that joking manner, but I know deep down, Sam, he might not feel like it's that joking of a matter. But Coming up in the second part of the show, we'll dive into Mina Kimes, because she had some stats on the Ravens offense with Lamar Jackson and the offensive line that I thought were very interesting, and I think exposed some weaknesses for the Ravens this season. We'll dive into that and so much more coming up on Locked On Ravens. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of the sports season. Whether you're following the NFL, NBA, or both, there's no better time to jump in on the action. If you haven't tried it yet, PrizePicks is the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats. If you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup. You can play anywhere PrizePicks operates, including California, Texas, and Georgia. I've been using PrizePicks during both football Sundays and NBA tip-offs. It keeps every game exciting. I like picking my favorite players like Lamar Jackson, Nikola Jokic, to see how my predictions play out. The new stacks feature is a game changer. You can now pick more on Steph Curry's points, threes, and assists in the same lineup. Plus, if one of your players leaves early with an injury, the injury reboot saves my lineup from a loss. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. Back on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher and Sam Njoku still rocking out with you here on this Purple Friday edition of the show. Again, thank you so much for being here, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. We're 5 days a week plus more here on Locked On Ravens with daily Ravens coverage. So we have the regular show Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. Eastern time. We also have bonus episodes on the weekend when there are headlines, and we're certainly probably going to have some bonus episodes this weekend because it's this season and there's always headlines to talk about. We have the watch-alongs during games. We have the instant reaction shows after games and after pieces of big news, plus the Locked On Ravens squad show twice a week. Sam and I, along with former Ravens receiver Kadri Ismail, Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, and also after games. And sometimes a wild Nick Moore, Ravens long snapper, shows up and drops some knowledge on us there. So thank you again for the support. Sam, Mina had some interesting comments, Mina Kimes, and she was talking about a lot of different things pertaining to the Ravens in particular and their offense. So this was on the Mina Kimes show featuring Lenny, and she talked about some of the differences from last season compared to this season. You obviously mentioned that the Ravens, they only gave up 23 sacks all of last season, and that's their number now through 11 weeks. But also talking about Lamar under pressure, it's been a different conversation this year compared to last. She said that last year Lamar had the 4th best pressure to sack ratio in football. This year it's 31st. He sacked 30% of the time when he is pressured. And so that, it to me shows a couple of things. The pressure is so quick this year, and with some of the stuff that he's going through with his leg, that's just the perfect storm of bad for Lamar Jackson, and not be able to have that burst up into the pocket on some plays, or when a guy can bear down on him. Like, we've seen him get caught a couple times. Like, it honestly, you can tell me if this is a bad comparison, Sam, but it reminds me a little bit of the 2023 AFC Championship game, when that play where he had up the sideline on the Jaire Sneed, and you're thinking that's Lamar Jackson versus Jaire Sneed. That man is dusting him like CJ2K versus, like, Ndamukong Suh, although Ndamukong Suh has some underrated speed, I'm not gonna lie. But you're like, okay, Lamar wins that battle 10 times out of 10. But Lamar tried to like cut it inside because he wasn't feeling fully confident. And then he obviously revealed after that game and after that season that he was dealing with stuff. And then you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense, because healthy Lamar Jackson dusts Jaire Sneed and scores a touchdown there. But and even the play where the ball got batted up in the air and he caught it and he started running, you're like, oh, he's gonna go. He's the fastest man on the field, and then he gets caught from behind. So it's those types of things where the pressure is getting there quickly, and the sacks, I think, are happening more because the pressure is so egregious, where like Daniel Faalele just won't block somebody and just let a guy run by him. Rosengarten gets thrown to the ground by Myles Garrett. Like, it's those types of plays that all of a sudden, if you're Lamar Jackson, you're trying to get through your first read. You can't even get through that before you have to scramble around. And I think it's some important added context compared to what we saw last year to this year. But it also was interesting because, the only change is Patrick McCary for Andrew Voorhees. And I think that, like we've talked about, Sam, for weeks now, months, they're definitely missing him, or at least the veteran, all 5 position versatility that he brings to the table.
They're definitely missing something. I don't know if it's McCary. I don't know what it is, but something is missing. Shout outs to Mina Kimes. That's a great stat that she was able to pull up, because that does definitely tell you what this team is going through. And I think some of it is, yes, the pressure is getting to Lamar. The Ravens are very poor when it comes to protecting their QB right now. But I also think that it has to do with the fact that besides the Browns game, the Ravens have really struggled running the football. And I think if you run the football effectively, you get the play action, and that limits the amount of pressure you're getting on your QB. So the Ravens probably ran play action very well last year because the running game was superb, and everybody was keying in on either stopping Derrick Henry or Lamar Jackson. This year, no one's worried about stopping Derrick Henry because there aren't any running lanes to go through. People are able to pin their ears back, get after Lamar Jackson on passing downs, on short yardage situations, because they know they can count on their front four, maybe a couple of guys in the second level of their defense to stop Derrick Henry, and there's nothing to it. So I think if the Ravens start running the football effectively and more aggressively as they did last year, they could use the play action, take some pressure away from Lamar Jackson, and hopefully that helps this offensive line out. But you're correct. This offensive line has done this Ravens team no favors, done Lamar Jackson no favors. But I think if they can start using the run a little better, I think we saw a little bit of that against the Browns. I think they ran about 5.8 yards per carry with Derrick Henry last week. If they can get the run game going to be as effective as it was early this year and all of last year, then I think this team can kind of right the ship.
Yeah, and Lamar actually defended the fact that he hasn't gotten caught. He said he doesn't recall getting caught in the league at all. And usually when he's caught from behind, it's more so like he's already kind of ducking down and like trying to get down, and then a guy kind of like comes in from behind. So like speed for speed, yes, I agree with Lamar. Like, it's very rare, if at all. But that Chiefs game was the one where the reporter said, oh, that Chiefs game is when you caught your own pass. And he said, oh, that doesn't count. He said that doesn't count. He said everybody knows that was a touchdown. He said that he dove and he got caught there and just barely got him. So he was talking about more like getting walked down like that. Like, who was it? Was it Budda Baker and DK Metcalf all those years ago?
Yeah.
And so when DK walked him down and got I don't think he fumbled, but or maybe he did. I don't remember, but
I don't think so.
Yeah, but regardless, he got him down. That Lamar's never, I don't think, ever going to get caught like that. No. But, it feels like that burst is just not where it was. And part of it with the injury and part of it with the pressure being so quick is just, it's unfortunate. And you talked about the run game. I trust them more to convert on 3rd and 14 than I do on 3rd and 4. That Derrick Henry run where they get down to the 9-yard line. I'm like, all right, 3 points, book it, put it on the board. Like, the red zone of inefficiency has been staggering this year compared to last year. And actually, I'm going to try to do some quick math while I ask you this next question, and then we'll get into it after you answer. But Mina also talked a little bit about the fact that, with Baltimore and other things pertaining to Lamar, she doesn't think that he's losing his athleticism, but she does think the offensive line is not as good as they were last year. And also talked about Lamar, that he was second with QBR on pressure in 2024. He's just 23rd this year. So like you said, like something is clearly not there. It's not being as effective this season, because I also think some of these some of the early down runs are being telegraphed, it feels like. And it just feels like defenses are keying in on these early Derrick Henry runs and short third down Derrick Henry runs. So it's like, I don't want to say the Ravens offense is predictable. I mean, clearly it's not, because they ran Mark Andrews on a fourth down end around for a touchdown hurricane. But at times it feels like the defense is able to sniff out things, which is just like guys are in the perfect spot at the perfect time. And when that pressure comes, whether it's off the edge or a defensive lineman winning or it's a stunt that's not picked up, that obviously puts pressure on Lamar. And I know that, and I talked about this earlier in the week, Damian Harris, former NFL running back, was questioned like, man, what is wrong with Lamar Jackson? Like, and my answer is like, you try throwing behind this offensive line consistently at times. Like, I'm not saying it's all their fault or all, one person's fault, because everybody plays a part. But I mean, on some of these throws, it's like, when do you want them and where do you want them to throw these footballs when there's that pressure quickly or guys aren't getting open and this, that, and the other. So like, and again, we can all say Lamar didn't play great in that Cleveland game. Like it's there. There were throws behind guys, below guys. The interceptions weren't his fault. But just as a whole, this offense feels off right now. After you mentioned it, Sam, they're putting up 30 points, 40 points like it was nothing early in the season.
Yeah, and it's tough to put a pin on it, but again, I still think that the run game is the reason for this, this struggle, and that falls not only on the running backs but on the offensive line, also on Todd Monken, as you mentioned. They've been very predictable in some aspects, running in the first down and second down, not getting enough yardage, making it third and long, making it difficult for Lamar Jackson to get things going. So, again, I'm not going to panic here again, because that Browns defense is staggering. But if the Ravens were to fall short, maybe not lose the game, but look inept on offense against this Jets team or against the Bengals, then you start to panic. Then you start to say, okay, well, if they can't get it done against the Bengals, well, how do you expect them to get it done against the Patriots or against the Colts or against the Bills? Well, the Bills defense is kind of terrible as well. But the point is, the Ravens need to get it together. I think they got a chance here if they can get their act together. Maybe start throwing the ball, short yardage, quick drops on first down to set up second and short, third and short, to give themselves a better chance to be unpredictable on those downs. But something's got to give. I think the personnel needs to change on the offensive line. We've talked about this every week since the start of the last season, it feels like. But whatever it takes to get this thing done, I'm optimistic that change is going to come some way, shape, or form. The Ravens have got to find a way to put points on the board, because the defense is finally doing their job. And if that defense, if the offense can get it together, get back to what they were in week one, sky's the limit.
Here's my stat for you. Last year, the Ravens were the number one red zone offense in the NFL, 74.2% conversion rate. This year, they are nearly 30 percentage points worse at 47.2%, giving them 28th in the NFL in that regard. So from the top red zone offense in the NFL to a bottom 5 unit in that regard. You can't have it. And it explains a lot of what's going on with this team. Now, again, when you're deep in the red zone, and I say this all the time on the watch alongs when it happens, like, shrinking the field makes it difficult for you. It's just a more difficult area to score sometimes. But it shouldn't be when you have Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry on your football team. And, also when you are, it's going to get harder for you when you eliminate half the field on these dang rollout plays. Burn the rollout plays. I'd never want to see them again. It eliminates half the field. They barely work in the first place. It hasn't worked for years consistently for this team. Dating back to, I remember they were trying to win every game on a 2-point conversion, and they were doing all these rollout plays, and obviously the 2-pointer last year. So that area just feels like the play calling needs to be better and the execution. I'm not going to put it all on the play calling, Sam. I'm not going to put it all on the execution, but it's a joint effort there that just has not been good enough. And for as much as we say for the Ravens defense strategy of just hold them to a kick or a punt, you're going to win. Well, the Ravens offense luckily is high powered enough where if you just keep them around as a defense to keep the Ravens offense in it, like we saw last week, they'll be able to go out there and probably win against a poor team. But if the Browns had any semblance of a quarterback last week, if they had even Justin Fields last week, who's not going to play in this Jets game, but if they had Justin Fields, Cleveland wins that game, probably, whereas Baltimore's offense probably wouldn't have had the opportunity to get back in.
Yeah, I was so calm, cool, and collected throughout the entire game. I knew Dylan Gabriel and Shadur Sanders weren't going to do anything against that defense. It could have been a 10-score deficit heading into late into the fourth quarter, and I would have been, okay, well, they're going to get it. Because the Browns offense got nothing done. I mean, the score is fooling you because without that pick six, they had nothing but field goals, and they weren't even close to reaching the end zone. I know that toss by the end of the play to Shadur Sanders that was broken up by Chidobe Awuzie could have gotten a touchdown, maybe, but that's as close as they got to even coming close to scoring, in my opinion. That Browns offense is awful. But to your point, you're right. If there was any type of offense that was out there on the football field, the Browns would have won that game. But if the Browns had any type of offense, the Browns may be leading the division right now because their defense is so spectacular.
Yeah, and shout out to the defense. I mean, look, for all the offensive line woes they've had, that defense has turned it around in spectacular fashion. So coming up in the final part of the show, we'll talk about what that defense needs to do against this Jets offense in week number 12, as well as how this Ravens offense and the offensive line and everybody can hopefully bounce back in this game. So stay tuned. Plenty coming your way on Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by Gametime. NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout. It's frustrating. That's why I use Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Gametime is fast, easy, and backed by the Gametime guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. I pulled up Gametime, and in just a couple taps, I saw amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite NFL games as low as $100. The app made it super simple. I could even see the exact view from my seat before buying, and I love zone deals too. You pick the section, Gametime picks the seats, and you save big. Honestly, it's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way I've bought tickets. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. Continuing on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher and Sam Njoku still rocking out with you here. Talking Ravens football on this Friday. The Jets are coming to town, and this is the first time since that 2022 game where Joe Flacco was the starting quarterback. And the Jets just love throwing these former Ravens out there. Tyrod Taylor being the starter this week, Joe. So Super Bowl champion Ravens quarterbacks. You know, my prediction, next time the Ravens play, it's going to be Super Bowl champion Raven Cooper Rush.
Boy.
Who is the Jets quarterback? So that means the Ravens have to win the Super Bowl this season. And I hope that prediction comes true. But the Jets are an interesting team, Sam. Obviously, they traded away their defense during the trade deadline. No more Sauce Gardner, no more Quinnen Williams. So they're in rebuild mode right now at 2-8. But that hasn't stopped them from being a very efficient run offense. They're the third best rushing offense in the NFL right now with 5 yards to carry. Nick Moore talked about that with us on the squad show on Wednesday night. But their pass offense just has been non-existent. They're 30th in the NFL. Obviously, Justin Fields has been their main quarterback this season, starting in 9 games, and he has just he hasn't been able to throw the ball at all. It's been a lot of rushing for him. Now, he's not going to play in this game. And I think a lot of Ravens fans feel, Sam, like Justin Fields, no problem. We know who Justin Fields is. But Tyrod Taylor is kind of that wild card, like could be really bad, also could be really good. So how are you feeling about the offense versus defense matchup, Jets offense versus Ravens defense, considering also no Garrett Wilson in this game?
Yeah, no Garrett Wilson. But listen, I was much happier that we'd get a potential Justin Fields out there because he's downright awful. I think at least we know Tyrod Taylor can probably throw the football greater than 10 yards. Then they had that with Justin Fields. Am I concerned about that change? Not really. I don't think Tyrod Taylor is going to be the quarterback that, knocks this team down, this Ravens defense. I mean, the Ravens have played better quarterbacks in their win streak. Caleb Williams, I think, is a better QB. We've had instances where, I don't know, but Joe Flacco, is he a better QB? Yes, I think at this point Joe Flacco's a better QB because he looked really good in that Bengals uniform as well. So the Ravens have had stiffer competition at QB and still came out looking really good. I don't expect that to be any different against Tyrod Taylor. The run game is a bit of a concern because if the run game can get it going, they don't really need to do much passing. They can use the play action, as we talked about earlier in this contest. But it'll be interesting to see what the Ravens do. They looked much better setting the edge against opposing offenses in the past. Is their run defense back to the way it was in week 1 when they had Donnie by the Beak in the middle? No. When they had Tavius Robinson setting the edge? No, but they're still good enough, I think, to put Brees Hall down more often than not. Will Brees Hall eclipse 100 yards? Maybe, but I think it'll take much more than that for the Jets to come out here on top.
Yeah, and we kind of saw it in the game last week against Cleveland, where it's like, Quinshon Judkins early got his, he was ripping off some chunk runs. Missed tackle still a pretty big issue for this defense. Like, that Jerry Jeudy play where, but 3rd and 7, picks it up 2 yards pass and just jukes out 3 guys. Lohi Gilman's been a pretty bad tackler for all the good he's done. That's one area of his game where he has really struggled. It's not just him, obviously. A lot of others have had those moments as well, but missed tackles or something. But look, the way that they have generated pressure, the way that they have begun to win with just rushing 4 without blitzing. Draymond Jones has been exceptional. Travis Jones started to really pick it up here. And also the defense. I mean, Zach Orr praising Chidobe Awuzie, saying it's one of the best pass breakups he's ever seen. I mean, and it was impressive. But I still think that when you look at what this team has to offer with Marlon and his issue and him coming back and being a part of this defense again, the depth is there for them. And the tide is finally turning. But I am curious because, again, this is another one of those bad offenses that you're like, okay, you should be able to get the job done. But then what happens when you do play? Is Joe Burrow going to return on Thanksgiving? I don't think he should, but, what if he does? What's that going to look like against Jamar Chase, who will be back for that game after his suspension, T. Higgins, etc. You got the Patriots offense that has been really good this season. The Packers are kind of an up and down group, but, there's the potential for them to have those games. Pittsburgh games are weird. And we don't have to talk about those right now. But, at the end of the day, I'm so impressed with this defense, but I think it's going to come down to the offense against this Jets defense. And actually, I need to figure out, let's do a little bit of live research here on Locked On Ravens, because this could have a major impact on the game. Well, McDonald, he was a limited participant in practice. He is their sack leader with 7. He has been very good for them this season. They have Jermaine Johnson still and a couple of guys on the D-line that can get some pressure. But the Jets defense as a whole this season, they're the 20th best rush offense and the 19th best defense, 20th best run defense and 20th best pass defense. So when you look at that, they're kind of middling across the board. Conversion rates for them, the Jets are again middling on 3rd down and red zone with 13th. They're not a great conversion team on offense. So I think that this Ravens offense has the opportunity to bounce back here at home. It's all going to come down to the offensive line, though. I think that's the biggest conversation point when it comes to both running the football and throwing it.
Yep, absolutely. The offensive line needs to come here and step up and be that dominant offensive line that we've seen in short spurts in the past. I think the run game is going to have to be the one to take control in this game. I think that the Jets do have a great pass defense in some regards. Losing Sauce Gardner, even though he hasn't been as spectacular as we saw in his earlier years, still was a presence there that the Ravens would have to account for. He's gone, so they don't have to account for that. Quinnen Williams, we saw what he did in Dallas this past week. So all those things make me believe that this Ravens offensive front will need to be pushing effectively to get the run game going, get Derrick Henry going. Justice Hill, full participant in practice. He should be going as well as Keaton Mitchell. Get these running backs going so that Lamar Jackson doesn't have to face those hits. If he can throw the football 15 times a game and come out with 30 points, that's the winning formula for this Ravens team. And they can do that if the running game gets going against a defense that leaves a lot to be desired.
So much works off of that. Play action game gets more effective. If they start blitzing and sending more pressure, you can work the short game off of that. Screen passes become more effective. It's just the whole offense opens up when this run game is. And that's been the Ravens thing for years, is getting back to bully ball, where they haven't been able to win a lot of heavy on heavy recently. It's been a lot of they're getting blown up off the ball and whatnot, where that their identity for years has been, we're just going to blow you off the ball and just run the ball down your throat. Hasn't been the identity of the season. It's obviously a lot more of a balanced offense with Monken in general, but I still think that the Ravens have a really good opportunity to win this game. Of course, they're favored in this one, but that doesn't mean, look, I'm still scarred from Jameis Winston, Gardner Minshew, like all these trap games that they seem to fall. And look, the game that they won last week, normally they don't win those types of games, but there's all those sloppy mistakes and embarrassing mistakes like that. So, that's really the number one key to me is stay out of your own way. You stay out of your own way, play mistake-free football, you will probably win this game. but there are obviously a lot of other factors to talk about as well. But Sam, I appreciate you. Thanks so much for hopping on. Before I get you out of here, please tell people where they can find you and what you're working on as another week Ravens football is approaching.
It is, for sure. You can catch me on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Ravens Talk Podcast, Talking Ravens Football. Should have a new episode out next week, Talking Ravens Football. Hopefully, the Ravens finally eclipse the 500 mark and get to 6-5 after beating the New York Jets. And then the stretch begins for us. So make sure you tune in for that. Also, find me on the Locked On Ravens Squad Show twice a week with your boy Kevin and Kadri Ismail, talking Ravens football. Got some other players coming in. Nick Moore came in on the show this week, so that's a pleasure to have him on. Lots of time, lots of people to talk Ravens football.
Yeah, exciting times for the Ravens because they're winning football games again. Hopefully that continues this weekend. So be sure you go support Sam. All the links to his work in the description down below. And thank you to everybody for watching and listening to Locked On Ravens. Sam, thank you again for hopping on. And be sure to hit the like and subscribe button in both video form and audio form for 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage. Coming up tomorrow, we're probably going to have a bonus episode for you. It's the season after all, and there are headlines on headlines on headlines. So be sure to stay tuned for all we have coming your way, and I'll see you right back here soon on Locked On Ravens.